Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to start today with a confession, a slightly embarrassing one. Yesterday, I was at the grocery store, just doing the weekly run.
Sure.
And I decided to use the self-checkout lane because, the line was shorter.
Big mistake. I think I see where this is going.
Huge mistake. I scanned an apple and the machine just screams, "Unexpected item in the bagging area."
So classic.
So I move the apple. Then it says, "Item removed from bagging area. Please return item." I put it back. It starts flashing red. People are sighing behind me. And I swear for a second, my heart was actually racing over an apple.
It's the modern fight or flight response, isn't it? Except the tiger is just a touch screen with a bad UI.
Exactly. And that feeling, that little micro panic, is a perfect way into what we're diving into today. We're talking about the people for whom that feeling isn't a one-off. It's like a constant state. We're unpacking the concept of the digital phobic.
It's a really profound topic. The material we're looking at today is actually titled Resistance and Anxiety in the Digital Age. And it fundamentally changes how you look at people who, struggle with technology.
I want to get right into that title because resistance and anxiety, those are heavy words.
They are.
Usually we talk about tech with words like adoption or upskilling, very corporate positive words. But this is suggesting that for a huge chunk of the population, the main emotion of this century isn't wonder, it's fear.
And that's the crucial distinction. We often dismiss people who struggle as just being old-fashioned.
Or stubborn, yeah. Oh, my dad's just a Luddite.
Exactly. But this deep dive challenges that. It argues we need to stop looking at this as a skill issue and start seeing it as a psychological one.
Okay, so let's break down this term. Digital phobic. Phobic sounds medical, like arachnophobia. Is it the clinical thing?
It's more than a metaphor, but it's very specific to the environment. So with claustrophobia, your anxiety is triggered by a small space.
Right.
For the digital phobic, the trigger is the environment of the digital age itself.
The environment being literally everything. You can't just walk out of the digital age.
Precisely. And that's what makes it so debilitating. Think about it. We moved from the industrial age to the digital age.
Okay.
In the industrial age, you could see things work. Gears turned, steam came out. It was tangible.
You could kick the tires on a car even if you couldn't build one.
Exactly. You could kick the tires. But the digital age is all about the black box.
Yeah.
You touch a piece of glass and money just disappears from your bank and reappears somewhere else.
Right.
To a digital native, that's just normal.
Yeah.
But to a digital phobic, that opacity, that invisibility of the mechanism is terrifying.
It's the lack of feedback. When I write a check, I see the paper, I hand over cash, I feel it leave my hand.
Mm-hmm.
When I click submit, did it work? Did I send it twice? Did I just buy a plane ticket to Iceland by accident?
And that uncertainty is the breeding ground for the first pillar here. Anxiety. The research says anxiety is the primary engine.
Let's dig into that word, because we throw anxiety around a lot. I'm anxious about this presentation, but this is something deeper, isn't it?
It is. We're talking about a specific kind of performance anxiety. Think about your self-checkout story. You felt watched. You felt incompetent.
100%.
You felt a loss of control. Now, imagine feeling that every single time you need to pay a bill or check your medical records or apply for a job.
It's like having stage fright, but the stage is your entire life.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And the anxiety stems from a few specific triggers. One is what psychologists call computer anxiety. It involves the fear of irreversibility.
The idea that one wrong click will destroy everything.
Yes. Which, to be fair, in the early days of computers, you could actually delete the operating system if you weren't careful.
That's true.
So the software's gotten more resilient, but the anxiety hasn't really updated.
And it's also about the social part, right? The embarrassment.
A huge part of it. If you can't work the ticket machine, you're holding up the line. You're the problem. That shame is a massive component.
I get that. It's not just, I don't get this machine. It's, this machine is proving that I'm obsolete. It hits your self-worth.
Exactly. It attacks your self-efficacy, your belief in your own ability to succeed.
Okay.
So if you approach a task already believing you'll fail, your brain floods with cortisol. Your cognitive functions literally drop.
So the anxiety actually makes you worse at the task.
It makes you dumber in that moment, which leads to the failure you were afraid of, which just reinforces the anxiety. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
The panic causes the error.
Every single time. And this is not about intelligence. You can have a brilliant literature professor who just freezes up when they're asked to share their screen on a video call.
Because it's a domain-specific anxiety.
Precisely. But the stakes are so high because you can't opt out of the digital world anymore. You can decide not to cook. You can order takeout. Try opting out of having a smartphone in 2026.
You basically cease to exist bureaucratically.
And that pressure creates the second pillar in our source material. If the internal state is anxiety, the external behavior is resistance.
Okay, let's unpack resistance. When I hear that, I picture someone crossing their arms and saying, I refuse. Is it that aggressive?
Rarely. That's the Hollywood version. In reality, resistance is a defense mechanism. It's a coping strategy for the anxiety.
So if the digital world makes you feel scared and small,
Your brain just tells you to avoid it at all costs.
resistance is avoidance.
It's avoidance, but it can be really creative avoidance. It's the person who prints out every single email to read it on paper.
Or the person who drives 20 minutes to the bank to talk to a teller instead of using the app.
Right. They're spending significantly more energy to avoid the digital path.
I know that person. I have a relative who will not book flights online. They'll call the airline and sit on hold for 2 hours.
And why do you think they do that?
I used to think it was just stubbornness, but based on what we're saying, it's about control.
It's about agency. On the phone, they're talking to a human. They get verbal confirmation. They feel in control. On the website, they feel like they're just throwing their credit card number into a void.
So that 2-hour hold time is the price of safety, the price of keeping the anxiety down.
They're paying a time tax to feel safe, and a money tax, an emotional tax. And here's the tragedy of the resistance loop. It actually makes the problem worse over time.
How so?
Well, think of the digital divide. We usually talk about that in terms of, who has internet access. But there's a skill divide. Technology moves so fast. If you resist it, if you spend 5 years avoiding smartphones, when you're finally forced to use one, the gap between your knowledge and the current tech is just massive.
Right. You missed the iPhone 1, 2, and 3, and now someone hands you an iPhone 15 and says, good luck. You don't even have the foundational language.
Exactly. You missed the grammar of the interface, the swipe, the pinch to zoom, all these things we learned incrementally. For them, the wall they have to climb today is 10 times higher.
Which, let me guess, creates more anxiety.
Significantly more. It validates their original fears. See? I knew I couldn't do it. The resistance creates the very incompetence they were afraid of. It's a heartbreaking cycle.
It really is. And it makes me think about the workforce. I mean, we're not just talking about booking flights anymore.
Huge implications. We're seeing experienced, valuable employees retiring early because they can't navigate the new software that manages their job.
Whoa, that's brutal. An expert accountant for 30 years, but because the firm switches to some new cloud system, they feel like they can't function.
And instead of saying, I have anxiety about this interface, because that can feel weak.
They manifest resistance.
Yes. They complain about the software. They criticize the newfangled methods. They become the grumpy person in the office. But underneath is someone who is just terrified of being exposed.
So the louder the complaint, maybe the deeper the fear.
Precisely. Anger is a shield for fear.
So we have this loop. Anxiety triggers resistance, which causes skill decay, which causes more anxiety. It's a trap. But here's a question. Are these people wrong?
What do you mean by that?
I mean, we're framing this as a phobia, which implies it's irrational. But we also talked about black boxes and invisible money. Is it possible the digital phobics are actually the sane ones?
That is the provocative counterpoint. And the research doesn't shy away from that. There's an argument that what we're calling a phobia is sometimes just a healthy skepticism of a world that demands total connectivity.
Right. Maybe I should be anxious that my fridge is connected to the internet. Maybe resisting a cashless society isn't a disorder, it's a valid political stance.
It can be both. And this is where the nuance is. Resistance becomes a phobia when it stops you from living the life you want to live.
Okay, that's a key distinction.
If you want to FaceTime your grandkids, but you're too scared to touch the iPad, that's a tragedy. That's anxiety winning. But if you choose not to have a social media account because you value privacy, that's a choice.
So it's about whether the resistance is holding you hostage.
Exactly. The source material focuses on the distress. The phobic label applies when the person feels overwhelmed and excluded against their will.
So what do we do with this? I'm thinking about my parents or that colleague at work. If I just say, you have digital anxiety, that's probably not going to help.
No, please do not diagnose your colleagues.
Right.
But understanding the mechanism changes how you can help. Right now, we try to use logic. We say, it's easy. Look, just press this button.
I am so guilty of this. I've definitely said, it's intuitive.
Which is the worst thing to say. Because if it's intuitive and they don't get it, the implication is that they're stupid.
Right.
But if you understand the root is anxiety, you stop trying to teach and you start trying to lower the stakes.
Lower the stakes. How?
You don't start with the online banking transfer. You start with a game. Solitaire, Wordle, something where failure has zero consequences. You help them build that self-efficacy in a safe sandbox.
You let them see that clicking the wrong button doesn't blow anything up.
You have to rehabilitate their trust in the environment before you can teach the task.
That makes so much sense. And on a bigger level, this has to be a design question, right? We keep telling people to adapt or die, but is that fair?
It's not sustainable. The digital age is currently designed by the top 10% of tech literate people for maybe the top 50% of the population. We're assuming a baseline comfort that just isn't there for everyone.
So we have to stop designing what you'd call hostile systems. A checkout machine that yells at you is hostile design.
It is. And the so what of this entire deep dive is that we need a concept of digital empathy. We need to design systems that account for anxiety. We need big, visible undo buttons. We need human escape hatches where you can just press a button and talk to a person.
It's like accessibility. We build ramps for wheelchairs. We need digital ramps for the anxious.
That is the perfect takeaway. The digital phobic isn't a bug in the system. They're a user group that the system has failed.
A sobering thought. We assume everyone is becoming a digital native, but as tech gets more complex, AI, VR, we might all find ourselves feeling a little phobic one day.
I think it's inevitable. There will come a day when some new technology arrives that makes you feel that tightness in your chest, that makes you say, nope, I'm good with my phone. I don't need the brain chip.
I am already there with the brain chip, to be honest.
See? Resistance. You're already doing it.
Touché. Well, this has been a real eye-opener. I think the next time I see someone struggling with a screen, I'm going to see that invisible battle they're fighting.
That's the goal. A little less judgment, a little more patience.
And to you, the learner, thanks for diving in with us. I want to leave you with one thought to chew on. We talked about how the digital phobic creates a wall to protect themselves. But ask yourself, in your own life, is there a new tool or a change you've been ignoring? And are you ignoring it because it's useless or because deep down you're just a little afraid of being a beginner again? Something to think about. We'll see you in the next deep dive.